Do you ever wake up with this longing for something or somewhere? Kind of like you're stuck in the wrong place.
See what you think of this then.
Ta-da! What are we looking at?
Bacteria, viruses, all huddle on the surface area like little microscopic aliens and monsters.
It's scary.
Which is exactly why we're here.
I just don't think this is my kind of thing.
If you think you can do better, be my guest.
Cash, of course.
I'm sorry, I don't have any change.
Oh, really?
I'm a control freak, aren't I?
Get involved!
Choose lots anyway, yeah. No, wait.
Oh.
Why don't you come back next week? Welcome, everybody. Hello. This is day 3 of the People's Film Festival. I'm Festival Director Dustin Curtis Murphy. We have 50 short films streaming at kinoshort.com/the People's Film Festival. And you can access all of them from now until March 12th for Pay What You Can Afford. You can also vote for your favorite filmmaker to win our £1,000 film fund. So over the past 2 days, we've hosted some great live stream conversations, including some filmmaker Q&As about Black Lives Matter, homelessness, and female filmmaking, plus a fascinating conversation with festival directors, a roundtable, which filmmakers got insight how to make their short films festival ready. If you missed any of those live stream events, you can find them on our YouTube channel. So please like and subscribe. And right now, we're lightening the mood quite a bit from yesterday, and I'm chatting with 4 filmmakers who have directed comedy films all in our festival. I'll introduce them one at a time as I bring them into the room. We're going to start off with Lucy Hilton Jones, Present for a Good Girl. Hi, Lucy. I can't hear you. I think you're muted. No, now it says you're muted. Little bit of technical difficulties. I'm going to let you see if we can figure that out while I bring somebody else on for now. Once you think you figured out, just shout, and then we'll know you're on. Next, I'm going to bring on Katrin, Larissa, Kasper from Appetite. Hey, Katrin.
Hi, nice to
How are
see
you?
you. Good,
Nice to see you as well.
Yeah.
So we've never met in person, but we actually have worked with some of the same people before. I worked with both Sam Patrick and Alexander Toll, who are in Appetite, although both of them in different projects.
Ah, I didn't know that. That's so cool. How'd you know?
Yeah. Just from those productions, I ended up casting them, one through a connection with one of the producers, and the other one just cold call auditioned. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, they're lovely. They're lovely. I was lucky to have them.
London's a big place, but also a small place at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I've seen a lot of stuff now when I look at the credits and I go, oh, I know that person. I know that person. And that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, I'm going to bring on Gavin Irvine from 242 London. Hello, Gavin.
Hi, Dustin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Oh, this is like a Eurovision Song Contest. This is it. Do you want my vote or something? Whose film am I voting for now?
Anybody but your own, right? It's too conceited. No. So
I did watch the other. Go on.
Thank you. I watched yours too. Yeah.
Nice.
I really enjoyed everyone's films. I really did. I thought the performances in them and the direction and everything was fantastic. But I hope you all lose. I hope we win. Come on, come on.
Nice. So you've been to our infamous short film open mic night before, and that's where we met, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's a great night. It's
I think
a lot of eclectic films, and it's great to network. And well, that's something I desperately miss. We all do. It's just the way COVID has affected the film world's just crazy. But we need people to come on and support us as artists. And this is just a fantastic platform. And Dustin, thumbs up to you, sir, for doing this at a very difficult time. Well done.
Well, thank you so much, and also thanks for submitting to the festival as well. Couldn't do it without all of your brilliant work. So now we're going to bring on Simon. Simon, I'm not going to even try to pronounce your last name. I think I'm probably butcher it. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Hello. Don't worry about that. Hello.
How do you say it?
So I've heard many variations of the surname. So please, honestly, don't worry.
And the appropriate pronunciation is
Wegrzyn. Actually, the proper pronunciation is Wegrzyn, but I feel weird going, "Hi, my name's Simon Wegrzyn," so I just say Wegrzyn.
Wegrzyn. All right, nice. So your film, Shit, which is a great title, by the way, is produced by Adam Gregory Smith, who also produced Quiet Carriage, which was the winner of our Audience Award and Best Performance in a Comedy at last year's festival. But this is the first time that you're in our festival.
Yes, no, thank you, and I'm really honoured. It's a brilliant festival, and to be honest with you, when lockdown happened, I never even thought I'd be able to get behind a camera. You know, that very first lockdown when everyone was like, "No, it's full stop. We don't know what we're doing." So actually, I was super excited to actually get behind a camera, and although it was a skeleton crew, it was just lovely to be with two comedy actors, getting to write my comedy chops out and just have fun. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it's lovely to kind of meet loads of comedy filmmakers as well. You know, it's good to spread some laughs in what has been a pretty depressing time.
Definitely.
Indeed. So we're going to try one more time to bring Lucy on. Fingers crossed. Lucy.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm back, baby. Sorry, you can tell I'm not on the technical side of things. Thank you so much for having me.
Zoom issues for the past year or so. We've seen many of them go viral. So, so you also had a film at our festival last year, The Many Faces of Beth Jones, for which you were nominated in the same category as your co-star is nominated this year, which was Best Performance in a Comedy. Yes,
yeah. That was what brought me to this festival to my attention, and obviously the amazing work you guys do. I really wanted to start putting my films in for this year, and thank you so much for having them.
And you submitted 2 and you got 2 into the festival. You're one of the only directors who has, not directors, the only actress, and you produced both of the films, I believe, right?
That's right, yeah.
Nice. Well, welcome, all of you. I love your work. I'm so glad to be having it at our festival. Why don't we start off just by giving the audience a little bit of context about you individually before we go into talking about your films. So, Lucy, I know your previous short film was at Rain Dance, so congrats for that. But other than that, I don't really know too much about your background. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Cool. So I come from an acting background and trained up at Manchester School of Theatre and stuck around in Manchester. So that's where I live now. And I just sort of quite organically got into writing, beginning with theatre, which is obviously what I trained in, and then moving into working in film. Just found the right people, found the people that I enjoyed collaborating with, and I'm sort of just getting the ball rolling, really. I feel like I'm sort of at the very kind of beginning of understanding and finding my feet as a filmmaker. But yeah, I love acting and writing in equal parts, so why not combine the two wherever I can?
Nice. Welcome. And next we'll go to Katrin. So your film Appetite, it's played at Aesthetica, which was BAFTA qualifying, so congrats about that. And I know you are a German actress and filmmaker, but you trained in Portland, Oregon before moving to London. So spent some time in the States. I'm from the States. I'm from California as well. So wanted to know more about that.
Yeah, so it's a bit, I actually studied to become a journalist first, before I got into acting. And then in my final year, I got a scholarship to study abroad in the US. And I really wanted to try acting because I've loved it. But I just didn't dare to do it properly, like as a main job. And I ended up going to Portland State University studying theater arts, which was amazing. I really loved it there. And my visa expired and I have relatives in London. So I thought, okay, I'll do more courses in London and then I go to Berlin or I don't know. But that never happened because I really liked it here a lot. And so now I'm here. And Appetite was my first film with my co-director, Seumong Lee. And we made it in 2019. And have since, I'm working on another film with my partner at the moment. And want to keep doing it. I started writing a little bit as well, which is totally new to me. But I really like that during lockdown, you could stay creative and do something and work towards something that then later would be possible to do. Yeah.
Nice. Simon, let's go to you next. So you're a writer director and you're currently on the BAFTA crew program. How is that treating you?
Yeah, it's coming to an end now, and annoyingly, because of COVID, it's sort of really slowed down. So at the start of it, I got to meet loads of amazing people, and then Miss Rona decided to pop along and just kind of. So. But I've loved that, and it was a really good place to be in terms of just immersing yourself in filmmakers and producers and creatives and getting to know everyone. I think I came from a background where I started off acting and very quickly realised that I was asking too many questions and was getting a little bit too in the control seat. So I was like, no. And actually, it was a very good director who said to me, "You're a director, so off you go." And that was the advice I ever got. But no, I've loved it. And, I've been able to make short films. And I first got into comedy by creating a little piece for Channel 4 Comedy Blaps. And
that was, was it Flitcher and Crook?
Yeah, Flitcher and Crook, yeah, which was, and because I'm sort of an honorary ginge, I decided to kind of create a bit of a 101 Dalmatians, but without dogs, it was ginger. And, I say honorary. I am a ginge. And actually, it was very funny when I first made it. I got so much backlash from redheads going, "How could you do this to us?" And I was like, "I am one." It was important to kind of have a play around with that and sort of take ownership. But I just want to keep. Obviously, I love narrative drama, but I do want to keep kind of flexing the comedy muscles because we all need laughter.
Absolutely. Your first short film, Hold Hands or Hide, was not a comedy, right? That was, I'm reading here that it was actually quite critically acclaimed. It premiered at the Festival de Film de Paris, right? Is that what Cherie? It's available on Amazon Prime now. It won 5 awards. You want to tell us real briefly about that?
Yeah. So I'm a queer person, and I kind of. The thing is as I make queer material, what I don't want to do is focus on like the traumas. Although the traumas are there, I don't want to focus too much on that. Actually, it's about time we started just telling stories that with characters that just happen to be queer and identify across the whole LGBTQIA+ spectrum. But I think when you start out, it is important to kind of tell your own stories. And I kind of wanted to tell mine, and it was about my experience. And I don't kind of want to go too much into it because it's a comedy Q&A, but it was a time, and I wanted to kind of just pop that on film. And actually, it was really good for me to make it because it was kind of a bit of therapy, and we love therapy.
Nice, yes. So art is perfect for that. I don't know what we'd do without it. All right, Gavin, I'll go to you next. I left you for last because, man, you have one hell of a bio. So not only are you a filmmaker, you're a photographer, you're an artist, you're a musician, and it says you've shared the stage with Muse. So before we chat filmmaking, can you just tell me, how'd you get on stage with Muse?
Not that I can remember much of it because it was so off my fucking face. But they were nice guys. we were doing a tour with my band, and we got a gig with them. They just released their first album, and we did a gig with them up here in London. We shared this really cramped changing room, and look, it was a rock and roll. I'm trying to put it so I'm trying to say it so it comes across PC. They were really nice guys. It was great fun, and we had a bit of a blast. Yeah, and I was lucky enough to. I mean, look, if they met me in the street, they probably wouldn't remember me. I mean, you know, but they were pretty smashed as well. But I've shared the stage with quite a few other various big artists as well. Yes, I was an artist. That painting and sculpting was my first love, and maybe still is. I don't know. But yeah, I was always very involved in music, even in the school orchestra and so forth, and I love it. And the two ran side by side, and I always wrote the music in my bands and produced it. So they were always like, I was always making stories within my music and the lyrics and so forth. There were always little journeys about, perhaps quite personal about myself. And I came to the band, the band element came to it sort of, it's difficult. It's a very difficult to keep on rolling on with it. And I just got a bit tired of it and everything, the lifestyle with it. And I decided, basically quite through desperation really, to get away from what I was doing and to start branching out in a different way. I went to film school and I loved it, and it was probably one of the best things I did. And I started to realize I could storytell. I could bring my art and my visuals, and I could bring the music together all in one package and tell a story. So it was, and I took to it like to duck to water, as they say. And I love it. You know, it's difficult. Making films is incredibly difficult. I mean, being in a band is difficult because you've got so many egos. But you know what I mean. Try and deal with actors that are having a bad day and haven't had their cigarettes or their caffeine. Fuck me, it's difficult.
So let's talk a little bit about your film school. So you were at the International Film School in Wales, and it says you were mentored by Ken Russell, who made The Who's Tommy, and also BAFTA winner Peter Greenaway. Can you tell us a little bit about that mentorship period?
Yeah, Peter Greenaway was Ken Russell was a darling. He had an acid tongue on him. He could put you down. Oh my God, he was a fantastic man. I really didn't. I met him quite a few times, and he was just an amazing filmmaker. Really inspirational. I'm friendly with his widow, and I remember winning an award when I was in college, and it was for screenwriting for a film I'd made called Sebastian, which was a bit like The Devils, which was heavily influenced by his film The Devils. And as I went down to collect the award, he shouted out to the audience, basically, "It's the best film I've ever seen since The Devils," and with real tongue in cheek, you know what I mean? And I was just mortified because I mean, this was a £1,000 budget, you know, student film. I mean, I really loved the film, and he loved it as well. But you know what I mean? He just had that way of making you feel about that big, but also that big as well, if you know what I mean. He could do both, and he was a very lovely man. And I think his films are wonderful. Nice. Peter Greenaway got a grant from the Welsh government, I think, and he came to our university, and I love Peter Greenaway. I mean, at that time, I was just infatuated by Peter Greenaway's work, and I thought, I've got to meet the man. I've got to meet him, you know. But you know, they always say, don't meet any of your heroes, you know. And I remember we were in a big auditorium, a huge big crowd, all of, you know, and he came in, and people. And he's very straight-laced. He's very intimidating, man. You know what I mean? All dressed in black, sheer black, speaks like a politician, you know, throws his voice out there, and he's quite intimidating. And you could, you know, he went on, and he started to talk about how cinema was dead, and I was sitting there going, I've only come to fucking university, and he's telling me cinema's dead. Christ, why did I come? You know? And so I said to him, basically, was there any questions? And I timidly put my hand up, and I got, oh my God, what are you doing? You fool, don't. Because nobody else put their hand up. You know what I mean? Because he was that impressive of character. And I just said, well, I don't think cinema's dead. And I think if you look back, that we all like sitting in a dark room together, and basically, yeah. If you were sitting out in the desert somewhere and looking up at the sky and there's stars, that's storytelling right there. And he just turned around and looked at me really dryly, says, well, I bet Cecil D. DeMille wouldn't fucking think about anything about it like that. And I was just like cut to the core. Oh my
dear.
God.
Oh dear.
And look, yeah, but luckily I signed on to get involved in his film, and I was brought in as a grip, but he didn't need a grip. And I just went up to him and I said to him, and he saw me when I came in, he immediately started laughing, and we had a bit of a joke, because once he was on his own with me, he let the facade down. And we started talking about Monet and Manet and all these other artists. And he said to me, you know, I said to him, look, you don't really need a grip. Can I sit beside you and can I ask you questions as you direct? And he said, no problem. So I was extremely lucky.
Wow.
And I just sat down right beside me, and he was directing, and he was telling me all these things of what to do and what not to do. And within the couple of days I was able to do that, I learned practically everything. It was just amazing. He just opened up to me completely. And he said to me one thing. He said one thing to me, which has always stuck with me. And I think, sorry, one of you mentioned about you were writing, and you started writing. He said to me, if you want to be a filmmaker, if you want to have a voice and your own voice, you have to write your own material. And he's just said that you need to write and write. And he said it's going to take probably, he said writing is far harder than directing. And he's right. He's totally right, in my opinion. And he said it'll probably take you about 7 years to find your voice. As a writer, it depends what genre you go into. It'll take a time to write and to feel and to get some good stuff as well, but to understand what you're doing and to experiment. And he's right. It has taken me, I would say, probably about 7 years. But everything that I was doing in my work, even if it was quite serious, I found myself putting jokes in because it was my natural voice. And that's how I became that's how I developed my comedy voice.
Interesting. Well, I do definitely want to go into talking about writing in particular writing for comedy, because my background is I've done about 4 seasons of sketch comedy, and then I kind of gave up sketch comedy and went purely towards drama. And I think writing comedy is infinitely harder than pretty much writing anything else. But let's first, before we talk about that, let's go into just talking a little bit about each of your films. They're all wonderful. I'm sure some people watching have seen them, some haven't. So if you would like to be cautious of spoilers, do so. But in a nutshell, just give me a brief logline elevator pitch of what your film is about. Let's start with Lucy.
Cool. So mine is about 2 best friends that go to a rage room, which is a real thing. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but it is a room you can go into where you can smash a lot of inanimate objects to get out a bit of rage. And one's just gone through a breakup. The other thinks this is the perfect tonic for that. She doesn't agree, and hilarity is meant to ensue, but hopefully that's what the audience will take from it. That's not my place to say.
Well, you are nominated for Best Comedy and Best Performance in a Comedy for Josie Towers, so I definitely think some of the comedy lands.
Good for you. That's a relief.
Katrin, do you want to tell us about Appetite?
Yeah, so Appetite is about Steph, who is a serial dine and dasher. She goes to lots of dates with men and women alike, and she always orders a lot. She wants to eat a lot, and she says, I'm going to treat you. But when the bill comes, she's nowhere to be found, and she's just gone. And yeah, it's just following this woman doing her thing unapologetically, really.
And I was reading it's based on a true story.
Yes, it is. So I didn't write it, I have to say as well. Sam Oates was the writer. We developed the idea together after we heard a story on the radio, which was basically about an American guy who was dubbed by media the serial dine and dasher, because he had lots of profiles on different dating apps, and he would take women out and then he would just run out when the bill came and leave like them with massive bills. And he was jailed for that. I can't remember how many years, but that's how we heard about it, that the serial dine and dasher is finally in jail. And all these women were like, yay! And it's like, he didn't even change his profiles or anything.
I read that story too.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. And then, you know what? We thought, like, this is
kind of
funny.
I was gonna make a film about it too.
Very inspirational.
Yeah, but what we thought was sorry.
There's a bit of a lag between you two.
Yeah, sorry. We tried to make it work for a woman, which I think is the interesting thing. Yeah, because like we're in the 21st century, but still for a first date, I feel like many men would think I will pay for this. And there's still this thing going on. And how do you make that work when it's actually a woman doing it? And that was the interesting thing to explore, I think.
Fantastic. And it was your first film, and you've been nominated along with your co-director for Best First-Time Filmmaker. So congrats for that. Now let's switch over to talking about shit. Simon.
Shit. Yes, it's about a sleazeball called Trevor, who after a lad's night out decides to follow a girl home. And he's so blotto, so drunk that something happens, and he wakes up and is faced by an angelic cleric who gives him an offer he can't refuse. But he, being the stupid man that he is, does not read the terms and conditions. And hilarity hopefully ensues as well.
It does. Nice. I've seen it. It's great.
But I wanted to make it because you know, I've been out with girlfriends, and you see the group of lads who are incredibly toxic, incredibly misogynistic, and believe that their male privilege entitles them to anything. And I've watched as girlfriends have been, you know, under their sort of predatory gaze, and you know, it's not very nice. So I wanted to kind of just turn it on its head and give the predatory man his comeuppance.
Nice. And it's got a great performance in there as well by Laura Evelyn, who has some pretty big credits herself. I saw Good Omens, Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, Doctor Who. How did you go about with the casting process with her?
Well, so Laura and I worked together a long, long time ago. We both did a comedy Shakespeare. This was back in my acting days. And yeah, we sort of had kind of stayed in touch and kind of became friends, but actually I hadn't really worked with her since. And then when I was writing this idea down, interestingly, as I was kind of writing, I just kept hearing her voice. So I ended up kind of writing it for her. And then I phoned her up and said, will you please do this for me? And she was just so incredible, and just yes straight away, and just made the shoot so much fun. But she's a pleasure to direct, just easy and so inventive, and her imagination is just crazy wild. It's just an honor. It's amazing.
Nice. Absolutely. All right, Gavin, tell me a little bit about 240 to London. It's also nominated for Best Performance in a Comedy at our festival by the gentleman who keeps going on about lumbersexuals, which is absolutely hilarious. Tell me more.
240 London's about a secret agent who takes the 240 train to London, where he's brainwashed by a wayward lech and an uppity snob into handing over the merchandise. It's a lumbersexual Ipcris file. It's a wry modern Bretonian homage to the great British spy thriller, and with carrots, beards, and derrieres.
Nice. Well, let's go into talking a little bit about the writing process.
Did any of that make sense? Did any of that make sense to you?
100%.
Oh my goodness. I went on a stag do to Bucharest. I went to Romania for a stag do, and I never go on stag do's. This is the first one I've been on, but I went on stag do, and we arrived at Bucharest, and we were in the airport, and I arrived there, and I just felt as if I arrived back in the late 1960s or 70s, because the actual airport was this communist concrete monolith. It was just fantastic, and I just was sitting here going, this is pretty crazy. And we sat down because our transport to move us on somewhere was late. And as we sat down, this woman walked past, came through customs or whatever. She came by, and she had the most amazing derriere. I mean, she just had the most amazing figure, right? And everyone there, I mean, everyone, kids, dogs, hamsters, everyone there, right? Everyone just followed this woman as she walked. And I'm just sitting, and I was reading Pete and Dodd's Dagenham Dialogues at the time. I was sitting reading Pete and Dodd. I don't know if you know Pete and Dodd, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. They're just comedy genius, and they're
absolutely. I love Dudley Moore.
And I was reading this I was reading Pete and Dodd, and I mean, and their humor was, I suppose, back to the 70s, 80s as well. So I was sitting there, and as I say, I was watching it. Everybody was watching it. So anyway, I just immediately spewed out a couple of pages about two guys like Pete and Dodd sitting, reacting to this voluptuous woman walking past in sort of a public place. And I got back here to England after, and I thought, okay, well, I could expand that a bit, maybe. And I thought, well, if I was to set it, if I was to film it, where could I put it? I want somewhere, you know, big and you know, vast, like this airport. And I thought, okay, well, I live close to King's Cross, you know, in Camden, St Pancras. I went to the station. I went, wow, okay. And one of my favorite films is The Ipcress File, and I just thought, well, why not make this some, like Pete and Dodd, some sort of spy caper talking about some woman beautiful behind in a huge train station. And I just thought, well, that's something, you know. And then that's how my brain just works. And then a friend of mine had this conversation on Facebook about lumbersexuals, and I'd never heard that term before, ever. And they wrote on the Facebook, you know, they're probably like lumbersexuals still living at home, you know what I mean, as in, you know, with a lumberjack shirt, a beard, and a bum addiction. And I just cracked up. I just thought, this is Pete and Dodd. This is totally, and this is a friend of mine called Ellie Day and Chris Collins who were doing this. And I told them, I said, can I use this, what you said this time? I said, yeah. So I took that and I fed it into it about this woman also walking along in the derrieres and so forth. And so it was a big hodgepodge, but the whole film really is about espionage. And I wanted it to really, you don't really know who's going, like espionage, you don't really know what's going on. You don't know who's your friend, who's your foe, the names of people, everyone's spies and everything. And I wanted that the film to be extremely serious, with it like a 1970s feel to it, almost in its sexuality as well, which we're looking at the way, to a degree, men and women reacted to each other, and the sexism that was happening in that time as well. And that's why I flipped the movie to a degree to at the end, with women ogling men instead of men just using women as the female gaze. So I wanted to balance that up. I was very conscious of I didn't want to make like a Benny Hill sexist film. I was very, very clear in my mind that to try at the end, I want to try and bring it up to today's dates, make it feel like a 70s thriller, a comedy, homage to the Ipcress File, but also at the end to have a message and say that things have actually changed and we have moved on from those days and we needed to. So that's, you know, that's why, as I say, there's two women in the park with beards and so forth, and they're, you know, it's about equality at the end. And that was very important to me to get that message across.
Interesting. Well, interesting glimpse into your mind through the entire creative process of all the various inspirations behind that. Lucy, do you want to tell me a little bit about your writing process on A Present for a Good Girl, and just your writing process with comedy in general, and how you keep making things so consistently funny?
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I have to say, I come at it from a pretty chaotic approach. I tend to just have a little glimpse of an idea and just completely like word vomit into a page, and then tend to sort of like detract from that. I think with comedy, timing is obviously, stating the obvious here, but it's so important. And often things that you think are timed really well might not flow when someone's reading it, or a certain actor might completely interpret it in a different way. So I really like to get actors reading drafts fairly early on when I'm sort of kind of happy with where it's at, and then I think you kind of have to trust your gut from there, and know if something you're writing is important to you, push for that, and sometimes listen to people if they're kind of consistently feeding back that something's not quite landing or you need to cut this. It's quite easy to get precious, I think, with your lines and your work, especially if it's personal. But if it's just not helping the jokes land, get rid of it. So that's kind of a bit of an insight into my process. It's pretty chaotic. I don't sit down and plan too much. I tend to just like completely explode what's in my mind onto a piece of paper, and then tend to give it a couple of days and then look back at it and go, either what the hell is this? This has never seen the light of day, or okay, there's something here.
Interesting. So when I was doing some sketch comedy, I tried a lot of different things. Some worked, some didn't. And what I ended up doing a lot, that was one of the more successful things, was creating reality style content and just doing tons of improv. One of my favorite sketches was shot over 2 days, walked away with like 4 hours worth of improv footage. And then it was my job as an editor to cut it down into we did a 2-parter of like 2 7-minute sketches. So have you used improv as well, or are you just naturally funny on the page and you don't need to use that tool?
No, I have definitely used improv before. I think improv is incredible. And you can just get so many incredible, unique moments that would have never come from my brain from using improv, or like I say, just discussing things with actors and getting their insight. And yeah, I'm not ashamed to say I've definitely nicked some ideas from other actors before with their permission, but it just gives that color to things, and it gives that insight. And as long as you have people you're collaborating with that have the same vision as you, you're always going to get something good from an improv.
Yeah, and I love editing improv, especially. Sometimes I find it difficult to go see live because of the lags in between, but as a filming technique, it's great because you can cut all that lags out and come up with some gold that way. Katrin, you didn't write the film, but you were involved with the development process. So can you tell me a bit about the development with the writer?
Yeah, so the writer is actually my partner, Sam. And when we had the idea, originally it was supposed to be like a showreel scene. And then it just became bigger because we got more and more ideas about what could be funny. And I don't know, I feel like Sam is similar to you, Lucy. He's just has it in his head and writes it all down. And then, yeah, I don't know if he would call it chaotic, but he knows what he's doing. We would talk through together, and I would try and like give it my voice and see if it works. And then he would make adjustments, and maybe sometimes I would have an idea for a line that I would thought is funny, and then we would try that. And yeah, I feel like early drafts we send to friends, actors. So all the people in the film, the actors, the amazing actors, are friends of mine or people I met in acting courses, and they would then read through and give us feedback. So it was quite collaborative, I think. But yeah, the joke, the punchlines, all that stuff is totally Sam's credit.
So was there much improv utilized with the other actors as well, or was it very to script?
It was pretty much script. So we did rehearsals before, and Surmong made sure that it was all toned down a bit, because originally we wanted to or thought of it as bigger, but actually then in rehearsal we found, okay, this works much better if it's toned down and it's more subtle. And yeah, we just worked it out together then with the actors as well, which was great fun. So that gave something new to it as well, which I don't know, I feel like you can never really know what it will look like in the end until you've done it. Sometimes
Right.
you make the film 3 times, you write it, you film it, and then you edit it. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Simon, do you want to tell me about your writing process?
Yeah, so I'm kind of obsessed with shows like League of Gentlemen and Nighty Night and things like that. So I much prefer kind of going down the dark comedy route if I can. There's a lot going on in my head, so actually the writing process is quite a calming process. It's good to just sort of get it all out there. But you know, I've got an amazing fiance who is kind of my comedy tester, and I will write something down and test out on them. If they don't laugh, then I go straight back to the paper and try again. Back to my laptop, testing out on them. But I kind of surround myself by comedy people, really. I think when you're writing comedy, it's good to try and sort of tickle everyone's fancy. I think comedy is so wide and everyone has a very different sense of humor. And actually, if you can surround yourself with people who kind of slot into those gaps, then you're kind of onto a winner. But I love to kind of write sections that sort of, you know, I write a very detailed section and then I'll say here, ad-lib moment, improv moment around this framework. But I think, you know, the good thing about being a writer-director is I can write something, I can send it to an actor and they will do an amazing performance with it. But actually when we get on set, it's when we start playing, when we start improvising. There's a moment when I just said to Laura, can you just try singing this entire speech as if you're kind of this amazing gospel singer? And that's how we ended up, just with that one moment in the film where she sort of sings a line and all of these heavenly kind of harmonies appear. But it's just not being afraid to be playful and try things out. And I guess that kind of comes from my theatrical background as well. It's good to kind of play and try stuff. But it's the editing process, really, when you've got all of that material, then it becomes an entirely different film to the one you thought. So I think, yeah, just, sharing with other people, making yourselves available to other people's ideas. Similar to Lucy, the minute I stopped becoming precious is when I actually found that things were working and going in the right direction. So yeah, open and available to other people's ideas and input. It's just the best thing any filmmaker can do.
I agree. And you opened me up perfectly for my next question, which was, for each of the films, were there any comedy darlings that you left on the cutting room floor, or did it all make it into the final cut? Since you mentioned that, Simon, I'll just start with you. I mean, it's only 90 seconds. I feel like you could have fit more jokes in there. What great joke ended up on the cutting room floor?
God, so much. So we wanted to make a 90-second film because we wanted that challenge to sort of do that. But when you're working with Laura and Liam as well, actually, who played Trevor, there were so many moments when I just keep the camera rolling and let them go off on one. Laura went off into how I don't want to say too much, but how she came to the position that she was in as the character, being this kind of heavenly cleric. And that was quite a journey. That was quite a story, but that is something you can put in. And very quickly, that was when I went, I need to make a TV series about this single character.
Nice. And is that in development right now?
Oh my God, I'd love to. I've not actually kind of put my mind to it yet, but what's been interesting is as the film's been in festivals, the feedback generally has been we need to see this single character with Laura playing that character in 6 episodes on online or on TV. So I think with Laura's input, that could be a very funny project. But there were so many gold things on the cutting room floor, and actually I've got them all on my hard drive, and they do make me laugh.
Well, there you go. Maybe you should start releasing deleted scenes on the special edition Blu-ray. Nice. Gavin, what ended up on your cutting room floor?
Not too much. The reason why is that we were shooting in St Pancras train station, and it was very expensive to shoot there, and we only had a certain amount of hours to shoot there. So we rehearsed and we rehearsed and we rehearsed over a period of 3 months to get it so that we had the clock ticking. I had to have this shot by this time. I had to get this shot by this time. I had to get everything done by like regimented. It was almost, you know, I put these guys, the actors, through. I put them through hell to get them to so it was like clockwork. It had to be. We didn't have time to mess about. We didn't have time to improvise. Everything was just so structured and down to not the last minute. We actually did run over time, and we were just had to carry on shooting because we wouldn't have had a film if we didn't, until the woman that gave us permission to shoot sort of turned up, and we were all sort of like, please, just, you know, we're going in half an hour. But there was a very big Hollywood production film being shot that day as well. It was this very early Sunday morning we shot, and it was with Kirsten Stewart. Kirsten Stewart was doing a big movie there, and there was all these huge lights by the trains, and there was these huge, you know, big. It was a full-on Hollywood set, you know what I mean? And you know, we were, and you know, with a little camera, no lights, you know, it was, you know, budget guerrilla filmmaking, and but it was quite intense to do. But if we hadn't rehearsed, I mean, I remember we went and sat in a park, you know, when the weather was getting better, and I put them on a park bench and I drilled it through them what we had to get. And if they hadn't got through the scene within, you know, a particular scene by a couple of minutes, I would just say again. And then I go, that's the timing, that's where we've got to be, we haven't got time to mess about, we haven't got the money to do this, it's really expensive to be there. So it was really quite, and the guys put in a fantastic performance for me. I couldn't have asked for anything more. Sebastian and Aaron, they were Auntie, they were just magical. You know, everything, all the work we had done paid off because they just nailed it every time. And I had a great DOP as well, Christian, and he was like, we'd worked out, I'd gone down there and I'd sat down there in this location. I'd sat there for hours at a time, just watching and listening. When was the quietest time to shoot? When the trains, what time does that train come in so we don't get noise? When's it busy? When's there people coming in? I did my homework. I went down there, and it had to be like that, or else we just wouldn't have had those spectacular vistas that we had. And I wanted it to be like two idiots sitting within this cathedral-like train station, and there was, you know, so really to go back to your question, there was only a small fragment that we snippeted out to bring it. Looking back at the film now, perhaps maybe after the big reveal, maybe I could have shortened it and made it snappier there. But as I say, I wanted to put it in an element of turning the element that I said about the women and men and the equality. I wanted to put that in. That was a statement, and maybe that was too far. Maybe that should have hit the cutting room floor. I'm not too sure. But yeah, very little, very little.
Interesting. Lucy, what ended up on the cutting room floor of what footage did you just completely smash and annihilate with hammers rather than use?
There was actually very little that made it to the cutting room floor due to continuity. We obviously were in a very tight space. We were moving around a lot. We were moving objects a lot. And actually, when it came to the edit, we wanted to make the sort of the initial conversation in the raid room a little bit snappier, but we just simply couldn't because of continuity. And then on the flip side, the one thing I can think of that couldn't stay in because of continuity was when we were doing the smashing montage, my overall suit was looking a bit tattered, and I just decided to go full on Hulk and like rip it off in slow motion. And Josie, the amazing Josie, who plays Perry, is going like, no, like that. And we love that clip, but it just, obviously the next scene is me in a full boiler suit. So that just has a special place in my heart that I look at occasionally just for me. But apart from that, a lot stayed in.
Good, great. Katrin, what ended up on the cutting room floor of Appetite?
Some bits, yeah. Particularly, Lucy, as you're saying, montages. We had like the biggest part of the film is montages, because you go from one date to the other date, basically. And when we were in the editing room, it just sometimes made more sense to cut certain bits out or to rearrange them so that the punchline would be better. We also, the scripts that we filmed were a bit different because we didn't just film the lines that we had or that I had with each date, but we tried to make it like a little scene out of it. So you wouldn't just say 2 sentences, stop, 2 sentences, stop, because it's not linear. It's just a little bit here, a little bit there, because it's all chopped up in the end. So we lost quite a bit of that. And also at the beginning and at the end, just to make it shorter, a bit more concise. Yeah, so we lost quite a bit, I think.
It's common. So we'll move on to the next question, which is, in your guys' opinion, what would make a comedy short successful? How do you get a comedy to connect with audiences? How do you get it to play well at festivals? What is the difference between a comedy short that falls flat on its face versus one that rises above? Lucy, why don't you start on this one?
Well, I think a compelling story has to be at the heart of any film, not just comedy. So something that captures everyone's imagination. I also think being succinct and concise, which also sort of like echoes what I was saying about cutting lines. I think that's really important. You know, short films are called short films for a reason. And I think if you're sort of looking at your watch in a short film, that's not a good sign, especially for a comedy. So keep it short, keep it snappy, plot out a beginning, middle and end, whether that's done over 90 seconds so amazingly by you, Simon, or a bit longer. There has to be that arc to satisfy audiences, and just have fun. That's the most important thing, I think. It absolutely screams through the screen if nobody's had fun filming it. So just try and enjoy yourself, even if it's pouring with rain or it's a 14-hour day. Just push through and have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. What I notice so much of the time is a lot of short filmmakers that are first starting out try to fit too much in as far as the beginning, middle, and end with that arc. It's almost like they're used to watching a feature film. They don't have the scope or the budget to make a feature film, but they still use that feature film structure in a short. Whereas shorts so often seem to really thrive because they're more like scene structure, aren't they? Rather than a full story arc or full character arc. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's right. You can't develop, you have to have really quick ways for the audience to recognize characters, recognize situations, because they don't have the length of a feature film or a play to really understand that. So without falling into archetypes or, boring stereotypes, you need to quite quickly establish what's going on and who these people are, without a massive backstory.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It does make an interesting thing for society. At society, we become much more nuanced and everything. And that it really is a big challenge for short film. I know in my latest short film, I think probably the biggest weakness of it is the fact that I don't have time to insert as much nuance as I would like into it. So that is so hard. Is really a big challenge of short filmmaking. Katrin, same question. What do you think makes a short film so successful?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Lucy said. How you say, like, kill your darlings. I think there's often stuff that just is great, but you kind of feel like it doesn't make the film flow. And the flowing, I think, is quite important with a short film, that you can't, it can't be dragging on, especially with comedy. It needs to be snappy, as you said. I think we've all been lucky as well that our films probably all came out at a time where everyone needed comedy so much. In this pandemic, we all wanted to laugh and have fun and just, be happy about something. I think commitment is also super important, especially like from an actor's point of view, but also directing. In comedy, I think if you don't fully commit to it, it just doesn't work. So you need to give it your all, and that's super important. And I think that the characters or the story is relatable, because that is what makes it funny, that you as the audience can watch it and go, been there, ouch, yes, oh no, don't say it, ooh. And then, yeah, it's just funny that way, I think.
Nice. Simon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think with comedy, you sort of have to treat it like a drama. I think, yeah, there's kind of no excuses. I was guilty of it before. You sort of just create stuff for laughs, and you're constantly creating punchline. And actually, comedy is so much more deeper than that. And actually, if you approach the script as you would a drama, and you delve into it as deep as you would a narrative drama, actually the comedy is then funnier. At the end of the day, like, we all have really funny lives, even if we don't know it. It's, you know, light and shade in everyone's lives. And actually the best comedy is when there is heart there and when there is pathos there. And you hit the nail on the head about, you know, when it comes to a short form comedy, treating it like a scene study. Actually, and the way I see it is, if you don't end your film and your audience wants to know exactly where that character's going or what they're doing next, then it's not quite right. You know, I always want to try the best I can with any character. If I'm an audience member watching, that when that character, you know, for example, like the cleric, when she says bye and just disappears, I want to go, oh, where's she going next, and what's happening to Trevor next? And I think if you're able to do that in short form comedy, then you've taken people on a ride and you've done the work, and yeah, like, hey presto, you've got it. I think also you need to kind of give yourself, if you're not editing it yourself, get yourself a really good comedy editor. You know, there's amazing editors out there, but there's also specific comedy editors out there, and they're harder to find. But when you find them, they take your comedy to another level that you just didn't expect. So to any filmmaker starting out, I'd always be like, just, if you're doing comedy, find yourself a comedy editor. And I will often sit in the background on the first kind of one, not to even say anything really. I like to just kind of sit, wait for the editor to laugh. And the minute that editor laughs, I'm like, right, keep that in. Let them do their thing. But yeah, just trusting other people to handle your project.
Yeah, well, comedy editing is very, very tough, because I mean, editing in general is very tough. I edit all my own films, and actually probably the majority of my income comes from editing other people as well. And in my experience editing comedy, I will say by the time I'm done with the film, it doesn't make me laugh anymore. So by the time I'm showing it to people, I'm just trusting that, like, hopefully this works. I think it made me laugh once upon a time, but God, I've stared at the footage so much now.
Yeah, no, there were times when I would edit all my own stuff, and I still will. You know, budgets can be small, and sometimes you need to do that. But sort of more and more, I've learned, if I can hand it to someone I trust who's not been on the actual shoot day, and then just watch them work their magic on it, it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, the power of fresh eyes, absolutely. So Gavin, in your opinion, what makes a short comedy successful?
I think there's quite a few elements, and I think the guys have already noted and said, which I would have said as well. So they've already pinpointed quite a few. I think there's a couple of things. One thing I think that's really important is conflict. If you don't have conflict, and that's either between characters or whether it's in theories, your comedy's not really going to work. You need some sort of conflict. I love Louis Buñuel as a film director, and his surrealism. So as far as the typical sort of comedy narrative arc goes, sometimes you just throw that out the window. Sometimes just get in there and don't be frightened to feel, and experiment. All comedy can sometimes go to take you down a line and throw you a joke, but doesn't, and it just ends without a joke, and that can be funny. So there's so many different ways. There's the traditional way where we all go from a good beginning, good middle, good end. Well, sometimes you just throw that out. Sometimes you don't even need that to make people laugh. And you've got to be prepared to feel and experiment with that. And that's difficult. That's difficult because we are all sort of inbuilt to realize well, you know, we'll all look at these films and comedies and say, okay, well, there's a great beginning, there's a middle, of the end, and it flows like that. Yes, I do that. Of course, I do that as well. If the project and the writing and the story needs it, but there's times when I just do something as well where you just throw that out the window and say, okay, let's not go down that. Let's try. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, because you know, comedy. But there's so many ways that if you really want to try and push comedy, then you've got to try and really go back to basics, and sometimes just take that apart, and sometimes just go down on a completely different level. And that's brave, and 9 times out of 10 you probably will fail. But if you get it once, if you get it right once, then you really are you're on another level. You reach something that's really superior to what's gone, the trite and the banal, which we see. So there's so much of that in comedy. It's really trying to stand out. And to stand out, you've got to be prepared to put yourself on the edge, right on the edge. And of course, you know, you're never really going to know what's funny and what people's going to think is funny and what's not funny. By the way, I've watched all your 3 films. I really thoroughly enjoyed them. Okay, I really did. I thought there was, you know, there's great parts in every one of them. But as I say, I think that if I can give any advice to anybody who wants to be a comedy, and comedy is the hardest genre to write in, as Simon's just said, it is. But look, whatever, just if you can find some sort of conflict between characters, then that's a great start. Look at Laurel and Hardy, just for the geniuses, just for a start, you know. And they made great shorts at that time as well. Okay, they're little stories, but sometimes, as I say, look at Louis Buñuel, look at some of the surrealists, look at the humor within their work, and you don't sometimes have to have a narrative story to make great comedy. You can just walk into a wall, walk into a lamppost, and there's no story, but that's funny. So my advice to anybody is just look. Go with what in your heart, what makes you laugh. Forget about trying to please an audience. Forget it, because you're never. That's the wrong way to look at it. You're never going to win with that. Just go and please yourself on what you find funny. And and as I say, if you find somebody, for instance, you know, falling down a pothole and there's really not much else to it, or you know what I mean, then just do it. Just film it and get it out there and get it out to film festivals and experiment and see. And a great way as well for learning as well is for instance is your Thursday night short film night as well. Is to be in front of an audience and shoot a film and be in front of an audience and sit there with an audience and see where they laugh at your films and learn from that. And think, okay, that's really important. That's the learning technique. That's where you learn. That's why it's very different for all of us as artists at the minute. We're not able to sit in a cinema. We're not able to see our films on a screen. So we're not really learning and gauging the temperature of the audience towards our films and where they're working and when they're feeling. And 9 times out of 10, they'll feel. But it's what one big laugh or one laugh, that's where you've always got to grab onto, and you've got to keep hope within yourself and keep striding forward. So I don't think there's any secret rule to it, to be honest. I mean, this golden rule you said, beginning, middle, end. Look, yes, it's there. It's there as a good ruler. It's there as a good guide. But for goodness sake, play with it, because if you don't play with it and even throw it out the window, you're not taking yourself forward as an artist and a filmmaker. You're not pushing. All you're doing is doing the same old shit that every fucking filmmaker and every trite artist has done before. You've got to push.
Well, thanks for the shout out for the short film open mic night, and I couldn't agree with that even more. Is too many filmmakers, especially within the festival circuit, get so much rejection that they're not actually getting their work seen because, you know, maybe their work isn't up to that specific standard yet that a lot of festivals want. So with the short film open mic night, it's all about, we will screen. It's an open screen. Come screen with anybody and everybody and feel the temperature of the room. So, and you grow so much when you do that. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. We have time for one final question. And this is pretty much just because, you know, we're digital at the moment. I think we lost Gavin temporarily. Maybe he'll pop back on.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back. So we have time for one last question, which is, since we can't network in a room, what's the current project that you're working on? What's coming up next? And are you in need of any collaborator? And if you are, where can that collaborator get a hold of you? So Lucy.
Well, I've got a few things in the pipeline, but I am working on a new short film, and you are able to go and watch the pitch for it if you go and have a look at the £1,000 Film Fund page.
Pink and Blue.
It's called Pink Blue, yeah, and it is another comedy, surprise, surprise, set around a gender reveal party. I have my producer and director attached, but once we secure some funding, we will be sort of on the hunt for other heads of department. So I guess follow me on social media platforms. That sounds like a really lame plug, but that's probably where I'll be posting about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm always open to finding new collaborators. So hopefully I will find some soon.
Nice. I know we've tagged you, but your handle is?
At Lucy Hilton Jones, all one word.
There we go. Katrin, next project, in need of any collaborators?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on a political short film called Compromat, which we filmed in between lockdowns last year. We're editing now, but we will need a sound designer for that. And I'm also writing. I'm not quite sure what it will be yet because it keeps changing. It could be a short film, it could be a series of some sort. And it's about resurrecting old Hollywood actors instead of casting new talent, because why if you can just resurrect them? And so it's a bit of a spec-fi thing. And for me, social media too might work best. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and it's at Katrin, Larissa, Kasper, all one word. Yeah.
Nice.
I think
yeah,
if you have it somewhere, it might be difficult to spell, but yeah.
If anybody's looking for it, I mean, we've tagged you all. So if you go to these people's work on our Instagram or anywhere, you should be able to find the handle. It sounds like an interesting concept. I mean, Hollywood's always repeating itself and sometimes feels harder and harder for new talent to be discovered there. So it sounds like something they do is just get all these old actors back.
Basically, I had a nightmare like that, so I thought I might as well turn it into something.
Nice. Simon, what are you working on and in need of any collaborators at the moment?
Yes, always. Loads of little things kind of in the old noggin. I'm currently writing a drag comedy that's going to have lots of sort of London's drag queens and kings in. Which I'm loving writing at the moment. It makes me laugh, and also it's there to kind of show the diversity of kind of drag talent. You know, it's great that RuPaul's Drag Race has kind of created this mainstream thing, but not every drag performer is of that aesthetic. That's the beauty of that scene in London. Actually, it's crazy diverse and amazing. So I'm writing a funny old drag comedy, which. Yeah, always need producers, always need DOPs. I have producers and DOPs that I work with, but you know, we all kind of do our own thing. So I sort of think other writers, other producers, other DOPs it's not a bad idea to just get to know as many as you can, because at some point your timelines will align and you can sort of make stuff together. But I'm hoping, I would love to make that later on in the year once lockdown has eased and we're sort of back to normality, hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope.
I will gladly come and make teas and coffees for the drag queens if you need any extra pair of hands.
There you
So
go.
I'm just putting it out there.
Nice. And they can get a hold of you where, Simon?
Social media, yeah. So Twitter and Instagram at Simon Wegrzyn. So yeah, and I will answer all messages. So just drop me a line.
Nice, absolutely. Gavin, what are you working on, and are you in need of any collaborators at the moment?
I've written a couple of, I've written one monologue about 12 minutes, and I'm in the process of getting Alan Ford to do it, who was in Snatch. He was Bricktop in Snatch. Hopefully he's had his COVID jab by now, and we can maybe move forward with that. And it's about a grumpy old man who sits in a park and has a mumble and a groan about the fact that the park in London about dogs shitting in the park. But unfortunately he gets caught short himself and has to shit in the park himself. So it's sort of it's a comedy. I've also written another monologue. I've also written another monologue about a Christian. I'm in the process of writing it about a Christian porn star, and I actually worked in Babe Station. That was my first job when I came to London. I worked in Babe Station for 6 months, and so I got a bit of an insight of sort of that industry, and I'm sort of pulling that into this script, and it's hopefully it'll work as well, and I can get that off the ground. I'm happy to work with anybody as long as they buy me private health insurance, because no doubt they'll drive me fucking mad.
And they can get a hold of you where?
There we go. All right. Well, if they put the arm around me, they can get hold of me around there, you know. They can contact me. I just generally use Facebook. I've got a website as well, www.gavinirvine.com. I don't do Twitter or Instagram. I'm sort of probably got enough of a digital footprint with Facebook, and so yeah, I use that. But if anybody wants to come on board and talk to me about the project with Alan Ford and want to give me shitloads of money, then yeah, do it.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining the call. It was great chatting with all of you. We're just on day 3 of the People's Film Festival. It's going until next Friday, and our award show is next Friday at 7. Next, coming up this evening at 5 p.m. GMT, we're going to be chatting with animators, all who have official selections in the festival. So come back for that. And thank you so much for joining this call about comedy. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks
so much for having me. Cheers.